He told me he was going to make all Region 1 employees come today. There's a test after, though. So welcome to the Optimized Mobility session. This year, since we talked a lot about goals and mission and vision last year, we thought instead of doing all the goals again in the big session, we would break it out and do more detailed work in the little session. So these two lucky folks got assigned to talk about mobility, and they're going to go into where we're heading with mobility and how we're going to measure success and that kind of thing. So first, I'll introduce Chris Peterson. Chris has been a region director since 2011 in Region 1. He's been here with the department almost 20 years. We started about the same time. So Chris will talk about mobility, and then Miss Becky Bradshaw will talk about funding. And Becky's been with the department now since 1990. She started her career in the comptroller's office, and she's made her way all the way up to director of finance / comptroller. Can't quite figure out what the title should be, but director of finance is a good one. This should be a great session. I'm sure there'll be time for comments and questions, so please fire away at them, except for the senior leaders in the back of the room. You guys have to be quiet, or they'll do it to you later. All right, Chris.
All right, thanks, Shane. Becky and I got the short stick, and here's the deal. Randy's hunting, and he was supposed to help us do it, and somehow he conveniently had a hunting trip scheduled previously, so now we get the deal. So we're excited to talk today a little bit about mobility. Becky's going to talk about money and where it comes from. But first, I thought we'd have a little bit of fun. I don't know, how many of you guys went to the West Davis Corridor presentation that Randy did yesterday? Okay, we're not going to do the polling thing to find out what I ought to buy my wife for Valentine's Day. I'm going to fail anyway, so I don't want you guys to be implicated in the fact that I don't know how to do that. But I did ask a couple questions, and so I asked some folks, if I can get this to advance for me, I asked some folks, or I had the good help of the communications department, and we asked, what is mobility? So here's part of the problem. My brand new laptop, I can't embed, I gotta go back, I can't embed the video. It's too big, and it didn't run. It was run on a time lag, so we have to play it from here. So what's mobility?
Mobility, what is it?
Mobility, in my opinion, is being able to move from one place to another, point A to point B, and it could be walking, it could be riding a bike, it could be riding a trax train, it could be riding a bus, it could be riding front runner, it could be carpooling, and it could be walking. So it's all those things, and maybe more.
Movement. I think mobility is being able to move around and go from place to place.
Free movement. Well, to me, mobility is just basically the ability to get from one place to another.
Mobility is being able to get from one point to another efficiently.
Mobility means to me the ability of people in their vehicles being able to travel where they want to without too much impediment.
Mobility, driving a forklift around, driving a truck.
Well, mobility is how you get around, how you get to and from what you want to do, where you want to go. So that's mobility to me.
I think mobility is getting people to where they need to go.
Being mobile, being able to move.
Mobility is the ability to be able to go where you want, when you want, on any mode of transportation you want, walk, bike, car, and get there in the least amount of time.
Would be to move people from one point to another safely, efficiently.
Mobility would be getting people from one place to another as efficiently as possible.
Having mobility means being able to navigate easily.
The ability to move around. Without having any barriers or being impeded in what you're working on or doing.
Mobility to me means being able to get around safely and efficiently and quickly, and especially when it comes to biking, be able to have fun while I'm doing it too.
I walk, I bus,
I carpool.
I hike. Mow. Bill. E.T. Haha. Mobility.
So you have to know that wasn't scripted, but they did have fun with it. So everybody knows our strategic goals, optimize mobility is one of those. And as you listen to everybody, we didn't give them a little script. We didn't say we were a little worried what we were going to get. There were only a couple people that we didn't put into the video clip because of what they said. You know, if they were saying things we didn't like, we had full edit opportunity. But everybody, for the most part, understands mobility as the same thing. A little bit different take on it, a little bit different viewpoint, but it's pretty much all the same. So then we said, well, what's optimized mobility? Okay, because there's a difference. So let's see what they said about what it is to how you optimize. Okay, so we'll go to that video.
I guess I could answer that two ways. One would be to get where you want to go quicker, or be able just to get where you want to go when you want to get there. So I think to optimize it is getting to where you want to get to more timely, save you time.
To optimize mobility means being efficient at moving, I guess.
Optimize it, to use it to its best advantage.
I think exactly that, working in balance, making sure that things make sense.
Optimizing mobility for me means to be able to navigate as efficient as possible.
I think it means to reduce the impedance of getting where you need to be. I think we're in a fast-paced world. We want to get there as quickly as possible, so reducing the delay along the way.
To optimize mobility means to be able to move the traffic and the vehicles in a timely manner so you do not have heavy congestion.
Increase the efficiency of the movement, basically.
I would think optimized mobility would be to get people one place to another more efficiently than we did in the past.
Doing it in an efficient manner.
When I hear optimized mobility, I think of making it efficient for everybody, regardless of what transportation mode you're choosing.
Movement in the most efficient way possible.
Optimizing mobility means to help the system work efficiently.
Not have any clutter or no obstacles so you can do your work without being tripped up or whatever.
To me, what it means to optimize mobility is to make the best use of that, either the method that you use.
Making it safer, making travel safer, making it more cost-effective.
I guess to optimize would be to get to one place to another as quickly as possible, depending on your mode of transportation. But I would say that doesn't include leaving a football game early, because you should never do that, even if it does make it easier to get home.
In the interest of full disclosure, there were not any Utah State Aggie fans that would appear on camera. We did find a Cougar and a Ute, but the Aggies wouldn't talk, so I don't know. All right. So our vision lines up really well with what everybody says optimized mobility is all about. It's getting where you want to go, when you want to get there. That's a phrase that Randy repeats all the time. Where I want to go, when I want to get there, and how I want to get there. That's what optimizing mobility all is about, is doing that more efficiently. That's what we all try. This morning on my way, I don't normally commute, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but I don't normally commute to the Expo Center for work every morning. I don't know how long it's going to take me. I got here 10 minutes late because I didn't expect that it was going to take me 10 minutes to get off the ramp at 90th South and come in. How many got caught on the ramp this morning, right? If you don't do it, you don't know it. And so we try to optimize, that's our goal, so that you don't necessarily have to do that, or that you can at least rely on how long it is going to take you. So that's why our vision is what it is. This is what optimizing mobility is all about, being able to go where you want to go, when you want to go, and do it, and how you want to do it. Those are all personal pictures that I took out of my personal archive. I hope that's okay. Actually, I stole this from one of Carlos's presentations. I think that's Carlos up in the upper left, but you know, I'm not sure. So, our mission, innovating transportation solutions that strengthen our economy and enhance our quality of life. How do we do that? We do that by optimizing our mobility so that we can go where we want to go and get there when and how we want to do it. So, let's talk about how we measure that, okay? I measure it, if I can get, we'll go back a slide. I measure it if I can get up in the mountains when I want to, on the weekend, on the holiday, that I know that I can make it there when I want to, and I know what time I got to leave, right? That's how me personally, I measure it, whether or not it's my wife who can get to the soccer game, how long it's going to take her to get to the soccer game, or on her daily trips to Costco, it seems, you know, can she get in and can she get out, okay? That's how we measure it personally, but how does UDOT do it? How does UDOT measure whether or not we are optimizing our mobility? It is not that simple to measure mobility. Okay, we can do man on the street with everybody. We could go out and do a lot of videos, and we could take some type of verbal analysis. But let's tell you what we've come up with on how we're going to do this. This is not 100% set in stone. This is our first cut at how we're going to measure that. And so what we said is, let's look at Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah counties. And let's just look at our delay every day in Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah counties. And how are we doing? So we looked at it for 4 different years. And by the way, this is the Traffic Management Division, not me. And there's probably a much better session down the hall where they're going to talk about managed motorways. Anybody, you know, if you want to learn more about managed motorways. But this is how we're going to measure how much delay. And if you can look, delay has been increasing with time as you march from left to right across the screen. You can see that in Davis County particularly, we had about 100,000 hours in 2013, and by 2015 we had about 400,000 hours of delay northbound on I-15 in 2015. That's not a good trend, but we're starting to be able now to measure what our mobility is and are we able to go. If we have delay on our commute, I would surmise that we would all agree that our mobility is impacted or reduced by the longer delay that we have to occur. So we looked at that in that direction. We also looked at it in southbound. Now these take into account the fact that they don't subtract out anything because of construction. This is just what it is out there today. If there's construction impacts and delays due to that's going to show up in our numbers, okay? But you can look at Salt Lake. Salt Lake was in 2013, it went down, and then it's gone back up. It's skyrocketed clear up to 700,000 this year in the southbound direction. As we start to measure mobility, we start to learn what that is. So here's the question. Who here commutes to Utah County every day from Salt Lake? Oh, the front row. Okay, I got my guinea pigs right up here. Okay. Is it better to have delay and know how long the delay is, or is it better to just have, how important is it to have a reliable commute? Louder? I couldn't hear you. Very? So at least if I know that it's going to take me an extra 15 minutes every morning, I know when I got to leave so that I'm not late for the conference, right?
You know, if I leave at a certain time, it's going to take me X number of minutes.
Okay. So you would call that reliability, and a measure of reliability is how reliable, no matter how long it's going to take, how reliable am I going to be? So the smart folks at the Traffic Operations Center came up with this metric. Now nationally, we're doing a little bit different than the national experts. They're just calling things reliable and unreliable. Even if it takes an hour and a half to go from here to North Salt Lake, as long as it's an hour and a half every day, they're calling that reliable. And in Utah, we're not willing to accept twice the commute as an acceptable reliability, a two-time duration commute. So what we've said is blue is reliable and fast. In other words, I can get there and I can get there at the speed limit and I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to get delayed. What it should be is what it's going to be. But there's also unreliable fast speeds. Some days it's fast, some days it's slow, some days it's fast, some days it's slow. Sometimes it's 45, sometimes it's 65 or 70, sometimes it's 45, occasionally it'll dip down. So that's an unreliable fast speed. Recurring congestion is reliable and slow. Okay, right now southbound, the commute into Utah County every afternoon is reliable. How many of you would agree that the southbound commute into Utah County is reliable? Is it going to take you an hour and a half every day?
I never know.
You never know how long it's going to take. Okay. How about unreliable and slow speeds? Is that what you got going in there? Okay. So this is our first crack at it. So we've said, depending on the variability, we drew a threshold at the 0.6. There's some math behind it. Let's not worry about the math because I couldn't explain it if I wanted to. So what we said is, let's draw on, in Salt Lake County, let's draw a map of how reliable our speeds are based on your location on I-15. Now we have to have speed sensors, and I-15 is the only one that's got the speed sensors in it right now. I just attended a session on signal performance metrics. We will be able to get there on surface streets soon. We're not there, so right now we're only looking at I-15 is where we have the reliable speed data. So this is, if you look at it from Utah County up to Davis County, it doesn't include those counties. This is just Salt Lake. This is where you have reliability, and you have reliability based on high speeds, low speeds, high congestion or not. And as you look at that chart, what do you think? This was for 2014, is what we had in 2014. So let me show you how we broke that down. So annually, we just looked at all the traffic annually in I-15 southbound in Salt Lake County from 5 to 6, and we said 25% of that is unreliable and slow. And about 35% of it is reliable and fast. So now we say, okay, what's our trend and how are we doing relative to having reliable speeds in the county? Has our reliability gone up or down in the last couple of years on I-15? You guys that drive it, come on, this is group participation question. What do you think? Down? Somebody saying down? Bob? Anybody agree with Bob? So let's look at that and see what happened. So I-15 southbound, this is just during the weekday hours. This is a measure of our reliability. And when we first put this, when they first put the slide up, and Jason brought it in and showed it to all of Shane's staff members, we all looked at it and said, sure enough, that's exactly what it's doing. Our commutes have become much less reliable over the past 3 years. Okay, so that's one of the ways we're going to start measuring reliability. This is northbound, and in fact, I was talking to a friend who commutes northbound through I-15. I was talking yesterday to her, and she said it's crazy even now northbound, unrelated to the construction, about 90th South, 72nd South, even now pushing down into 106 South, you hit evening congestion and you back up every night coming into Salt Lake as well. Every night. It used to be like on a Friday night when there was an event downtown, like a jazz game or something. We're starting to see that lack of reliability creep into what we're seeing on the interstate. So, what do we do now that we know? Well, let me go back. I'm going to show you one more thing. What we're going to start doing is, and I'll grab a, what we're going to start doing is taking this chart and we're going to start plotting them year by year next to each other. So we'll look at, we'll take each year, and so that was 2014 that's on the left. We're going to plot 2015 next to it. We're going to plot 2016 next to it, and we're going to see how our reliability is changing each year. And then we can start to target, and as we look at areas where we need to work on improvements, choke point projects, say, some other opportunities, maybe as lane widenings, auxiliary lanes or so, we'll be able to look at that and see where we focus them. Maybe some of the areas where we should focus is not necessarily the slow and unreliable, but maybe it's the high and unreliable locations. Is there something going on that we can do that? So this chart is now going to help us dial in on areas where we have opportunities to improve, okay? So what we want to do right now is talk a little bit about what UDOT does to improve mobility. And one of the biggest things we do are TIF capacity projects, right? That's one of our greatest opportunities to improve mobility and improve reliability. So Becky's going to talk to us a little bit about where we get our money so that we can do that, okay? So Becky, you are up.
Okay, so I have an hour-long presentation that I usually can speak to about where our money comes from. I'm going to try to shorten that to 5 minutes. So we don't bore you guys to death. So really, we can't do anything about mobility without money. So where does UDOT get our money from? Really comes to us in 4 different funds. We have the Transportation Investment Fund, which was created for highway capacity projects, also known as TIF. We have the Transportation Fund, where we carry on our day-to-day activities in operations, maintenance, our admin group, and where we preserve our infrastructure. Then we have federal funds coming in, and then we have our aeronautics department. So I'm going to talk about the transportation funds first. The transportation funds is made up of motor fuel, special fuel. About $402 million come in. Is expected to come in fiscal year 16 into the transportation fund. It's made up of motor vehicle registration, special permits and fees, and only 9% comes from sales tax. How do we spend this money in the transportation fund? Well, it is spent on, we have 10 different line items. They range from support services, engineering services, operations. Now in the operations line item, almost every activity that they do in that line item can relate to mobility. It's everything from snow and ice control, signage, proper signage, litter pickup, sweeping. We have our incident management team in this line item. They definitely help us keep our roads clear after accidents. 16% of our funds is placed into the construction line item. This line item there's no people in this line item, no employees. It is strictly for the preservation and rehabilitation of roads. I think it's important to also state that $82 million of that TIF, of the transportation funds, is transferred over into TIF for highway capacity projects. So now, talk a little bit more in depth about the construction line item. Was anybody here yesterday for the luncheon and heard Carlos speak about our new gas tax? Anybody? Pretty exciting stuff right there. So in the past, we only had about 14% of transportation funds spent for preventive pavement preservation. Now with this new gas tax, that's bumped up to 35% in fiscal year 16 because the new tax law does not go into effect till January. We'll only see about half year's revenue from that new gas tax. So in the past, we didn't have enough money to take care of all of our roads, so we had to prioritize them. We had level 1 roads and level 2 roads. Now with this new gas tax, we can take care of all of our roads the same way. So instead of level 1 roads receiving proactive treatment and level 2 roads receiving reactive treatment, they are all receiving this proactive treatment. It's not going. Okay, that's fine. There you go. Do you want to push it? Okay, so I'm going to move into the Transportation Investment Fund. This is opposite of the Transportation Fund, where about 75% of this is from sales tax. 12% is motor vehicle registration, and that 13% is coming from the Transportation Fund, and that's our motor fuel. How is this money spent? Well, the majority of this money is committed to pay off our debt. So we've issued bonds in the past, so 57% is going back to pay back the bonds. 43% is on our current projects that we have in place right now. We have a short sample of our TIF projects. The list is much longer than this, but this just gives you an example of what projects we're currently spending with TIF funds. Then we have, is that not going? There we go. Federal funds. 22% of the funds coming into the department is from our federal funds. We get approximately $307 million. 80% of it is left with us to spend, and 20% is passed on to the locals. We take some of that money that we had from the construction line item and we use it as for our federal match. So with our federal match and the portion we get from the federal government, we have approximately $269 million to be spent on preservation, rehabilitation, safety, bridge, and capacity and choke point projects. Did I do it? 5 minutes?
I was excited. I was taking a nice break. So she talked about TIF, and that's where the majority of our construction dollars are spent. I just grabbed a couple pictures. I tried to find a few. Our big projects are all TIF. I-15 Core, the express lanes in Davis County. I got a picture in here of when we built Hinckley Drive over the railroad and extended it west up in Davis or Weber County, because that's a fun picture. Anyway, so TIF is a big part of what we do. It's where we spend the majority of our dollars to optimize mobility, but that isn't where the majority of the opportunities that each of us in this room have. We all, as I talk with the folks up in Region 1, I tell them, remind them that we need to be able to find a personal connection to each one of the 3 goals. And we need to find a connection in what we do to optimize mobility, to zero, and to preserve infrastructure. And that's something that we need to do. So I can't always, as what I do, tie myself to a TIF project. I might have a little piece here and there, but many of us don't do that. So what are other opportunities that we have? So here's a picture of the express lanes. By building the express lanes, giving opportunities for carpoolers to take a better advantage of the capacity in that lane. And then any excess capacity, we sell that capacity. That's a way that we can optimize the mobility. The express lanes carry more people than do the other lanes, and that's because of the higher occupancy of the cars that are in there. My neighbors are excited since we just built the express lane and finished that up in Davis County. My neighbors are excited, and they've all been asking me, how do I buy the express pass now? As they see that as a way to improve their mobility getting in and out of Salt Lake County as they come to work. We build innovative interchanges and intersections. We got a picture of a DDI, a picture of a CFI that are there. I also have a picture of a through turn that we just opened up in Davis County and Layton Hills Mall. That'll be the 3rd set of through turns that we've built in the state. It's operating well. We get a few complaints, but as I've driven through it, it's been it's improved the mobility in that area amazingly. We knew it would, but I was surprised as I've driven through there that I haven't had to stop at the signals. We've been able to time them well and place them well. So we build these innovative intersections when there's no other options, or when it's the right option, it's the right solution. Okay? We move bridges. We move bridges when it's the right thing to do, so that we don't have to impact and disrupt traffic. And so I threw a couple of pictures on here. We all know that we do it. I tried to grab, I had to use the Sam White one, but I grabbed pictures of bridges that we moved up in Region 1 because I think it's important that I give my guys some props too for all the great work that they do up in Region 1. We do a lot of traffic signal coordination, and we have a major effort to be a premier traffic signal group here in the state of Utah. And so that is a great way that if we can find ways to make them work a little bit better, reduce congestion slightly, even reduce the amount of delay you spend at any traffic signal, we make significant improvements, not only in your delay and in your congestion, but also in air quality if we can reduce those stops. Here's a picture of what some of the metrics are that the TOC and the signal operators use as they try to optimize how the signal works. They use this data that they can collect at each of the signals, and they can tell when cars are arriving at the signal. Are they arriving on red or on green or on yellow? And then they can adjust the timing and modify it so that they catch when the majority of the cars come based on how the timing works and all the rest of the corridor. They can give them the green light when they get there instead of getting the red light, which we all hate. And so you can see that the line or the first box on the left where all the dots seem to be You know, the higher density of the dots are below the green line, that's on the red. And if after they did their timing adjustments, you'll see a higher portion of those dots are arriving after the green or on the green. So the ability that we've gained to gather and access data from our signal controllers and the boxes and the detectors that we have out there is enabling us to do a much better job at optimizing our mobility. The incident management team does a phenomenal job of clearing incidents quickly and helping us do that. The length of time that an incident exists on the interstate, particularly during rush hour, is magnified in the amount of time it takes to clear the queue that builds behind it. And so the incident management team and the program that we have is purely intended to help get rid of those incidents that are occurring on the side of the road. The most recent stats that we have heard are that on an average day on I-15 in Utah County, there are 20 crashes that occur on the interstate. And we're thinking about whether or not we should store some tow trucks and hire tow trucks to be ready to respond to those so that we can clear those incidents quicker. That wasn't a very proper BBS move, Shane. It's okay if you walk in front of us.
I'm not walking in front of this.
We also do a lot of work at night, and we do a lot of work at night to do that, to do the things that we're going to do that impact traffic and congestion off of that peak and out of the time when it impacts other drivers, and we do that. And so it's not the most convenient for our laborers, for the contractors that work for us, but we work for the public, and so we do a lot of that, and we have to make a careful decision whether it's appropriate to do the work at night, whether we need to do it during the day. And if we can't do it at night and we need to do it during the day, or we have opportunities to do that, then we should look for opportunities to do it during off-peak lane closures. I took a picture of a couple of the maintenance guys planning some of the work, because what we really have to do is plan. We can't just anymore just go do it. And it used to be that we could just go do it, and that's not the case anymore. Paul's sitting over here on the row 1, 2, 3. Our maintenance forces, they contact Paul and they say, Paul, when can we go do this? When's the right time to go do it? So we don't do it. That didn't used to happen, and so as we continue to look for ways to optimize that mobility, we have to work together. We don't work exclusively. Our snow operations are totally intended to improve mobility. There's a little bit of safety tied to it. A lot of times we find that we're not having huge, super serious crashes. At least the majority of them don't occur then. They occur during the dry hours, but it's all about mobility and our ability to strengthen the economy by allowing everybody to get to work when they need to get to work so they continue to bring home the bacon. So snow operations is a big part of what we do, as well as routine maintenance. We do a lot of routine maintenance. If the road is falling apart, it's kind of hard to drive the speed limit to work, or we have a significant amount of damage and we damage our cars. So the opportunities that we have as we do our routine maintenance is a big deal, and it has a good opportunity to improve the mobility as well. And my maintenance guys over there going, they didn't even use any Region 1 maintenance guys, because you don't take pictures of the work you do. Get the camera out and I'll use your pictures next time. Okay? I saw them over there going, hey, those are Region 2. Okay, we also respond to emergencies, and anytime we have these major emergencies, Carlos yesterday talked about Hilldale, they happen. And our ability to respond to them quickly and timely and be able to open the roads back up and get them to work so we can have that traffic and moving and flowing is a big piece of what we can do to optimize mobility. We're going to do a little bit of a demonstration. So I don't know, how many of you have ever heard of managed motorways? It's a new thing that we're looking at. We're doing some research. By raise of hands, this is going to be important for us. Okay, Fred's heard about it. There's a few in the room that have heard about managed motorways. So I have brought Joe and his lovely assistant, Elizabeth, and they are going to do a little demonstration of what managed motorways is all about. So while you set that up, I'll talk about that a little bit. So managed motorways is a concept that if we are smart at how we ramp meter, we can improve traffic flow on the interstates during those heavily congested hours. Okay, so we can take that picture and turn it into that picture with one of these. But the big piece is it's not just ramp metering, it's the coordinated ramp metering. It's intelligent ramp metering, it's smart ramp metering. Right now our ramp meters, they just run on their own. They just have a timer. They let a car onto the freeway every 3 seconds, every 7 seconds. Coordinated ramp metering is the ramp meters based on very sophisticated models, very sophisticated algorithms. They control how many cars are coming onto the system right now based on how many cars are coming into the system 5 miles up the road or 10 miles or 20 miles. So we'll give you a little demonstration of how that works. Currently, our traffic on our freeways is Elizabeth. And what we're proposing is that I think Joe can beat Elizabeth if he just does a careful process. Elizabeth is calling an IMT. She's called a tow truck, called a friend to come. It's jammed up, she's stuck, but you know, if we just do a little bit more careful ramp metering by controlling how many people come in. Now, Joe got a little bit excited there because he was winning the race. But I'm almost willing to put money down that Joe can get 2 of these through, 2 of his bottles through before Elizabeth gets 1 of hers. This is a concept that I like to call it intelligent ramp metering, but this is a concept that they're doing in Australia. And they've been doing it for several years, and they have found significant success and improvement. And in fact, what we have found in our analysis and our model is that this gives us the equivalent of 1 more lane on the interstate for a much smaller investment on infrastructure, which is some modifications to the ramp meters, maybe a little bit at the ramps, reconfiguring some of the ramps, as compared to adding a new lane. And if you can imagine the cost of adding a new lane along the entire length of I-15 in Solid County, if we were able to just put some coordinated ramp meters in, we gain ourselves 15 years of additional capacity with just simply, oh, he got 2.5. I'm glad I didn't put money down on it. That's why I don't go to Vegas. Okay? That's how that works. And that's what Managed Motorways is all about. So thanks, guys, for helping to demonstrate that. We saw that. Yep, thank you. We learned about this, and we brought some folks up from Australia to explain to us how it works. Now, there's a lot of little pieces to it. One is that you have to have a very controlled flow, very controlled speeds, and so that's a lot of the pieces of the technology that we need to work on. But we're excited about it. We're moving forward with its implementation. We're finishing up a study on that, and we hope to be able to have a project coming soon, which will start that implementation. This is, again, this looks at traffic coming into the system clear up in Davis County so we know how to meter appropriately in Utah County. We need to know what's coming so that we can control what happens there. A lot of people say, oh, and by the way, it also means that we potentially need to meter I-80 and I-215 and SR-201 as they come on as well. And a lot of people call it aggressive ramp metering. A lot of people call it death. That are we really going to do that? We're going to be backed up on the side streets. We're going to be backed up. We're going to be all over. It's just going to be gridlock. It's going to be a mess. But you notice that we doubled our capacity with a little bit of ramp metering. It's not going to be the end of the world. You're going to still wait the same amount of time. You might wait a little bit more on the ramp, but when you get on the freeway, you're going to be going 55 miles an hour, not 20 and not 10. And so this is an exciting new opportunity to increase and improve mobility. So what else can we do? So those are things that UDOT's doing. What else can we do? We can help with trails. You know, every person that rides a bike to work, Nate rides his bike to work on occasion. Every person that rides his bike to work is one less car on the road. Small shift in mode share, and Carlos talked a little bit yesterday about mode share. Small shifts in mode share add capacity. And so we need to facilitate that opportunity for those who are willing to do it, who don't do it simply because they don't have a way to do it right now. My wife would hope that I did it more often, I think. Bike lanes and bike detection. We have been doing amazing things and making great strides on this. I asked Mark Taylor yesterday how many of our signals now have bike detection. He said 60% of our signals in the state now have bike detection. Now, they don't all necessarily have the symbol, which is on the lower left, painted theirs. We just paint that so the bike knows where to, to let them know that they're being detected. But we've now programmed 60% of our signals to detect for bikes, even if they don't do it. And so if you look at the upper left, they will detect in that zone whether or not you're parked in the right spot or not. They'll notice you and they'll see that you're as a bike. And I'm really excited. We've been putting in a lot of bike lanes up in Region 1 as we've been doing across the state. And this is something that we can continue to do. Just before the presentation started, I got a call from a council member in Centerville and asking us if when we have our project in 2017 in her city, if we would also put bike lanes in on SR 106. So Brent and Rex, plan on that. She said, if we ask you, will you do it? And I said, well, if you don't ask us, we'll ask you if we can. So that's part of what we need to do, is to optimize that mobility. We also need to support transit options. Every person that takes transit to work is one less car on the road, and we can't do it together. We're not going to be able to build ourselves out. We expect our population to double in the next by 2030. Well, we're not going to be able to double our road capacity, so we have to find these opportunities for improvements. So we asked that same sample of folks how they could optimize mobility. Okay, let's see what they said.
Well, my job here is as a mechanic. I repair the equipment we use to repair the roads and remove snow, which improves the efficiency of mobility.
To optimize mobility, I try to bike as many places as I can. I figure that's helping air quality and helping reduce congestion, and just trying to make the small slice of my world as best of a place as I can and just be a positive influence.
Throw away the garbage, get everything out of the walkways. Just try to keep an open path.
Personally, I try to avoid those peak periods where it takes longer to get from one place to another than at other times. And when I can, I do try to take transit to keep off the roadway.
I try to operate efficient equipment, safe equipment, whether it's at work or at home.
I can optimize mobility by traveling at not the peak hour trip period. So I could come to work later, work later, and then leave when it's not rush hour.
It's planning ahead. When you plan ahead, you won't find any obstacles in your way, which will make you as efficient as possible, and thus you will be able to optimize your mobility.
Try and not make the same trip twice, I guess.
We always carpool. We always try to think of our trips and where are we going to go, and if we're shopping, do we need to go this place and this place, and are we going to drive right past a location that we need to stop at?
At work, I can develop ideas and transportation plans that increase capacity, reduce the impedance along the way.
Personally, I can optimize mobility by getting a signal preemption device put in my car.
From a work standpoint, I try to turn around requests quicker and optimize the mobility of funding for the department.
Well, as a DOT employee, all of our projects, we're looking to optimize mobility. Dealing with signals, signal timing, things like that. We have experts in that area. What can I do as an individual? For me personally right now, I try to adjust my time so I can avoid the traffic on the point.
Well, actually, I carpool with my husband to Salt Lake, and it's the best option because I get to sleep.
So, totally unscripted, those folks, and Bob's sitting back there. Did we script you, Bob? Did we tell you what to say? Those folks came up with things that they can do as a UDOT employee to optimize mobility. They came up with things that they personally can do. And we should consider all of those options as we figure out what we do. Personally, we can plan ahead. I mean, those guys hit these all on the head. We can take transit. We can adjust our schedules. We can walk, bike, I put transit in there twice. We can carpool, we can video conference, nobody talked about that. That's something that I try to take advantage of as much as possible. There are things that we can do to get out of the peak. And we're fortunate to work for an entity that is somewhat flexible in allowing us to do that. Not 100% flexible, because I would have folks that never wanted to come to work because that would be the best way to optimize their mobility. So we still do have to come to work. At work, just a couple things I put up here. We need to do a better job of considering pedestrians and bikes in our MOT plans. That's something that I see all across. It's not just Region 1. I see that all across the state. We need to take them into account. We need to continue to plan our projects for the right time, whatever that right time might be, whether that's to work at night, whether that's to work in the off-peaks. We also have to consider the fact that we need to get the work done too. And so are there messaging plans that we can do to help others change their plans so that we can do what we need to do as well? So right time is not necessarily nighttime all the time. We need to work to help clear the incidents. We need to do the night work during those off-peaks. But what we need to do most is just keep on doing what we're already doing and looking for those opportunities. We're not the Department of Roads. We're the Department of Transportation. We should be looking for all the opportunity that we have to improve mobility for all of those modes of transportation out there, so that whoever it is that wants to get where they want to get there and how they want to get there, they can get there on time. These are a couple of personal pictures that I threw in. This is my idea of mobility, being able to get here when I want to get here. And that's what optimized mobility is to me, I guess. So we have a couple more minutes for questions. If anybody has any, we'd be happy to answer. Becky is the wizard of money, and anybody needs a loan, she's got lots. Probably none that you can borrow from, though. So. But anyway, questions that you might have? Shane's also here too. You can put him on the spot and ask him questions. What's he going to talk about for lunch today in his speech? Haven't got that figured out. Well, thanks so much for coming. Thanks for attending, and hope you have a good learning experience.